Hello, good evening, everyone. Chris Hughes from Rebound here with you today for another show, another day. Today I'm joined by John Letizia, who's a national basketball referee and former board director of basketball in England. Hello, John. Welcome today. I thought maybe we start by talking about your refereeing career. First, how did you get into refereeing?
Right, Chris. So, although I was born in the UK, I was actually brought up in Italy, where my parents lived. Small town, deep in the south, but absolutely crazy about basketball. So you are basically born with a basketball ball in your hands. So it's either basketball or nothing. So I kind of, from an early age, started playing basketball since the age of 18. And then when I moved to the UK, at that time, 35, 40 years ago, basketball wasn't really as popular as today's. So I decided to become a referee just because I wanted to kind of stay active in the game. No patience in being a coach. So I thought, you know what, I'll become a referee. And that's how it all started. And from then on, kind of really enjoyed it, made some really good friends, and decided to carry on with my refereeing career.
Definitely, straight to say, we definitely need lots of referees. There's not many in the game at the moment. Many people might not be aware, but in the last few weeks, they've obviously made some changes to the rules. I thought,
Yeah.
put on it. What do you think about the new rule changes? Any that stood out for you as really good ideas?
Yeah, so there are not, yeah, Chris. So there are not many rule changes, and also what we need to do is waiting for the interpretations by FIBA, which would actually clarify some of the interpretations. The one that really caught my eye, and I've seen some of the players commenting on Twitter, it's the act of shooting, of course, and it's all about ensuring that the shooting player jumps up straight and comes down straight, rather than leaving the leg. Yes, indeed. And as people we've seen, in the NBA, but also in the BBL and NBL, there are some players who are incredibly good shooters, but they do have this, shall we say, bad habit of sticking a leg out and causing the contact. So I think it's now black and white. So we know, as referees, but also more importantly as players, that the act of shooting is really about jumping straight and landing straight on your own 2 feet. If any part of your body sticks out, then I'm afraid any contact will be deemed by the offensive player rather than the defensive player. So I think that's a rule which I have to say has been in existence, but it's reinforced as we're going forward. As I said, we are waiting for the interpretations by FIBA, which should be coming out around June or July, and that will make it very, very clear. And the other one, it's really the unsportsmanlike foul, which again clarifies what it is expected by the referee in making a judgment call in what is and what is not an unsportsmanlike foul. But that should not really worry many people too much, because the rule has been in place for a few years now. I think everybody understands that. I think the biggest challenge remains for referees at all levels to call it in a consistent manner.
Of course. A few things I thought was quite interesting is that double fouling. So sometimes when I watch the game, you see players double fouling, and maybe the rest more likely to give the foul to the player with less foul count, but maybe the player who's on more fouls. So I'm hoping maybe with that it'd be a bit more consistent, and it makes it easier for the refs to ref the game a bit, because am I right to think that both players will get a foul in the double foul? Is that right?
You're absolutely right, and what the referees have to be absolutely clear that it's the same foul committed at the same time by two opposite players. I think when you have three referees, that is actually much easier to call it, because you've got three referees looking at different parts of the court. Two referees is much more difficult, because you've got a much bigger area to look at. But certainly when it comes to the UK BBL and NBL Division 1, it's easier to call it. I mean, I remember actually my last game of the season before it finished, it was a double foul, called it, but I also thought actually I'm in a good position to call it because it's three of us. Had it been two of us, I'm not sure whether I've actually called the double foul.
Of course. So for people listening, this season, they brought in the third referee for games. So I don't remember having three last year. Is that correct? This season they've introduced the three refs.
So the three refs were introduced. So the three refs were introduced last season for Division 1, and will carry on being three referees. So it will be BBL and NBL Division 1. Rest of the leagues will be two referees.
Do you find that easy having three, or was it easier with two? Because I always think that maybe sometimes there's three refs, it's too many trips at the broth, if that makes sense. Or does actually more eyes help? I just wonder what your thoughts are from this season having three instead of two. Has it always been better, or have been sometimes it's difficult?
Chris, that's a really good question. I think it depends on the referees. So when I started refereeing, for example, in the BBL, which even at my time was three referees, I actually struggled because having refereed two men for like 20, 25 years, and then all of a sudden you have to change your style of refereeing into three. It actually took me a long, long time. I think it's easier for the younger referees, whereby they are much more adaptable. There are many more camps, for example, summer camps, where they can actually practice their three-man mechanics. Most of the tournaments in Europe now during the summer are three-man mechanics. So I think for the young and up-and-coming referees, or people like in the BBL who referee three referees week in and week out, is easier. But to jump from two to three, it's a big step.
Of course, it's a different big step, isn't it? And does each referee have a different responsibility? Because obviously you all stand in different spaces, or can you all make a call at, say, at one end, even if you're the furthest referee? Or do you each have your area which you're responsible for calling?
So we all have our own areas of responsibility. So just like two men, you kind of divide the court for two men. Same applies for the three referees. There are some idiosyncrasies that we need to bear in mind, which doesn't apply for the two referees. But generally speaking, and it's like just before a game when the referees get together to have a pre-game. One of the key points to remind ourselves is the areas of responsibility. So knowing which referee in what position needs to blow for what. And there are some exceptions, like, I don't know, one referee, for example, has missed a big push or a big charge. Well, you have another referee who can come in, but that's quite irregular and should be irregular.
Of course. That's very good to say. It's a lot for everyone to get used to change the season having 2 to 3, but obviously for next season with these new clarifications. I was wondering, sort of, from your perspective, are there any rules you look at and you think, oh, I wish they updated that or maybe just amended it slightly just to make it clearer? Does anything comes crossing your mind? Does anything needs clarifying or amended slightly?
Yeah, I mean, there are some rules which I still think could be looked at. I have to say I'm probably old guard because of my age, but I would get rid of the possession arrow. I would actually have the old-fashioned jump ball. Because actually, I think on the situation on a close game, the arrow could actually determine the outcome of the game. So I would actually leave it to the two teams to decide on that. I still think the issue around the some of the unsportsmanlike fouls is probably too strict. You leave it to referees to make a big judgment call, whether it's a fast break or not, whether a player is going for the ball or not. So I would want some more clarification on that. And the biggest problem is that referees apply the unsportsmanlike rule in a very personal level. So it's not consistent. And that's why I can see why players and coaches go mad, because, 1 week is applied in one way, and then, the next week is applied a different way. So I can understand that. And I think those are the two main rules. I might want to have a look at it. For example, the backcourt violation as well, in terms of, and now I'm getting a bit more technical here, that I'm thinking it leaves the defensive team a bit more too much leeway in terms of having 1 foot in each court. But that's quite technical. But what I like at the moment is all the FIBA rules is actually speeding the game up, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
So, and any change that speeds the game up, I'm all in favor of that.
Definitely, it's to make the game more exciting. And like one of my favourite rules, 8 court seconds, so you've got to get into the other court, and it sort of speeds the game up, makes it more exciting, forces teams to make plays. So it's definitely really interesting. And thank you, that's really insightful about your refereeing background. So also, John's board director of Basketball England. I'd love to sort of hear how that opportunity came across and so, the positive things you saw while that's going on. Because I think it's quite easy for quite a lot of people to sort of sit and focus on the negatives. I don't think we always do that, singing loud about the positives we do about the negatives. So I thought maybe to sort of, with you having experience being on the inside, sort of enlighten us about some of the positive things you saw during your time with Basketball England.
Yeah, so Chris, I was there for 12 months. I was actually co-opted for 12 months due to my kind of professional experience. So the board felt they needed somebody with my professional experience to help them out. It was, generally speaking, a good experience, although at times quite frustrating. And I was there during the time of the GB funding and the relationship between GB basketball and the 3 home counties associations, England, Scotland, and Wales. And I think my experience at the time brought the best and also I think the worst of people within basketball, because on one hand, I could see people being really passionate in terms of getting funding for the national teams, making sure that there was the structure in place for the development of basketball in this country at all levels. But I also saw the worst in people in terms of criticizing and attacking the organization of Basketball England.
Of course, yeah.
I would say that without breaching any confidentiality, that some of the decisions made by Basketball England in the respect of the GB situation were not the ones I was in favor of, and it's well documented, and it's in writing, it's black and white. I much preferred a different outcome than what the board decided. So I was in a minority of one. Having said that, I think Basketball England has taken some good steps. I think they should be complimented in terms of some of the tough decisions they've had to make and they're still making. Because what people tend to remember is that the pot of money available for basketball in this country is limited. There isn't a huge pot of money. So with that kind of money we have, you need to look after the national teams, the senior teams, the women's teams, the junior teams. At the same time, you have, NBL, but you also have the junior programs, you got Aspire. And regrettably, the decision the board had to make, tough as it was for the long term. Now, I think there are some big challenges coming ahead. And one of the things that I wanted to see while I was on the board, and I still think it's actually the right way to go about, is for the BBL to work much more closely together with Basketball England. And ideally, what I would like to see is one federation. So the merger of BBL and Basketball England, rather than having 2 separate federations.
Yeah, the problem is once you separate them, it's hard to then join them back together, isn't it, I think? But that was definitely a good idea, sort of get all under one house, because, like you say, the pot of money so has spread too thinly, whereas you've got this one organisation, at least then it's a bigger pot of money spread a little bit less thinly. But no, it's very difficult. I don't think people always take that in perspective when they're criticised BE, just like, it isn't just all about national team as much as we want the national team to do well. We've got to also look about the ladies' game, men's game, juniors, grassroots. So I appreciate it's a lot to go on.
It is. I mean, the situation is that Basketball England and I've criticised them in the past, and I'm sure I'll do the same in the future. But they are operating under some really, really tough circumstances. And in terms of the possible, kind of BBL and BE working much more closely together, if you think about, for example, marketing and sponsorship, they will be going after the same people. If you're looking at attracting crowds, they will be going after the same people. So why basically divide your efforts and your money when by actually getting together, you can actually apply much more strength in terms of marketing, in terms of membership, in terms of playing activity, in terms of spectators, in terms of media coverage. And the problem of the two separate organizations is you're looking at short-term measures and you're really looking for survival rather than combining your strengths and your forces and looking at medium term to long term. And and that applies for referees as well. It applies for coaching, it applies for the players, and it applies for the referees. Because at the end of the day, if your league develops, you will get better players, you'll get better coaches, and you get better referees. So it's actually a win-win-win situation for everybody.
And then you also get better media, better exposure. Everyone wins, don't they? So it's definitely beneficial. But I can understand why maybe they reluctant to make a small-term loss for medium to long-term gains. So it's very interesting. I say something hopefully we'll see in the future, but fingers crossed. But thank you for coming on. It's been a great chat, really insightful. You're welcome on again. As I say, it's really good to hear about the rule change. I'm sure quite a lot of people at home might not be on Twitter all the time, like the players. So I think it was really insightful. Thank you for coming on. And look forward to next season. Fingers crossed we'll have a summer league, but we'll just have to wait and see. Take care.
Absolutely.
And all the best, John.
Thanks, Chris. You too. Bye.
Bye.